Hey you guys, welcome back to today's video. Now today's video is directed towards all of those who actually do not have to eat gluten-free, but for everyone who has someone in their life that does have to eat gluten-free. Now throughout this video, I'm probably going to just say someone with celiac disease, but just know whenever I say that that's just my own experience. I wanted to make this video because I feel like one of the hardest things about living this lifestyle is the way that it impacts those around you. That's one of the hardest things, is the burden you kind of feel forcing others to have to comply with this lifestyle that you are forced to live. That is one of those things that no matter how long you've been living this way, it really does affect you regularly. At least that is my own personal experience with it, and some people I have talked to. The hardest thing is really dealing with these social interactions. This video is to hopefully help lighten the burden or help the person in your life that is living this gluten-free lifestyle, and some ways that you can help them as well. Now I have 5 suggestions, 5 rules, I think I'm going to call them, about how to help this person. And these are just some things that I just came up with. There's probably some other ones. If anyone watching this that is gluten-free would like to give me some feedback of what other things you deal with regularly that you would love people to know. So my goal here is that this video will really help you if you have someone in your life that has to live gluten-free, or even if you don't. I meet strangers all the time, and it would be really cool if I said, oh, I have celiac disease, and someone said, oh, I know exactly what that is. I watched this video on YouTube once. My very first suggestion before I get into the rules is that I will have a video on my channel called What is Celiac Disease? I would say first and foremost, watch that video just so you know what celiac disease is, so that you can understand when people say certain things, you can know exactly what it is. If you have someone in your life that has a gluten-free allergy, is gluten intolerant, it will be a little bit different. That video is specifically about celiac disease. Now to jump into these rules that I have, or just suggestions mostly, I don't know why I decided to call them rules, but I think they would be good rules to live by when you have someone in your life that has to live this certain way, and just things you can do to help them. So the first rule to understand, and a lot of these are going to be about eating out, because if this person in your life is a friend, a family member, you will find yourself eating out with them if they're someone you are close to. So my first few things are going to be about how to deal with that. So this first rule to know and to understand is that not all restaurants who claim to have gluten-free options are actually safe. So you might have the idea to just look up on your phone, gluten-free near me, and your phone populates with some restaurants. And so you go to this person in your life and you say, hey, I found this restaurant I want to eat at, and they have gluten-free options. We should go there. Now that puts this person in a difficult position. If they've been living this way for a while, even if they're recently diagnosed, they will be learning this. They will have a list of a few places. For me, it's probably like 5 to 10 personally, of these restaurants I know near me that I can actually eat at and be safe. So this person will already know all the places they can eat at that will not make them sick. Now, if a restaurant says they have gluten-free options, that does not mean that it will not make them sick. And this is just because of the way that restaurants handle their food. Sometimes they are just horrible. So even if the menu says gluten-free, sometimes the wait staff just isn't even aware, the chefs aren't even aware. So it really all comes down to the way that this restaurant handles the food. And unfortunately, even if the staff working at that time is not knowledgeable, this person could end up being sick. So when you say to them, hey, I saw this restaurant has gluten-free options, we should go, it makes them have to step back and say, do I want to risk it at somewhere I don't know? So this is why you should always talk to that person about what options they would like. And this is rule number 2. So if you have a group of people going out to dinner, or even if it's just you and this other person in your life, I would always suggest to have that person choose the restaurant, or at least give options. So they don't need to actually choose the restaurant, but it always works so much better if I actually give the places to eat at. And this is more just for a casual setting, if you're with some people or just you and this person one-on-one and you're trying to figure out where to eat. I would always highly recommend to have the gluten-free person be the one that presents options, because going back to rule number 1, it doesn't make them have to explain themselves of, yes, that place has gluten-free options, but one time I got sick there, so I don't love eating there anymore. If you try to suggest places, it'll take a lot longer than them saying, here are some places I can eat at. Which one sounds good? And that will make the gluten-free person feel much more comfortable as well, because they know that they're eating somewhere that is safe and that they won't get sick. And rule number 3, again having to do with eating out. Rule number 2 was about if you're just casually trying to find somewhere to eat. Rule number 3 is about those instances where someone is celebrating something, whether it's a birthday, a graduation, there's some dinner that everyone is going out to celebrate something for someone who does not have to eat gluten-free. Now that person probably has some favorite restaurants, and when everyone looks at you and says, where can you eat? It really puts this pressure on you thinking about, okay, it's this person's poor birthday. Just because I happen to be a part of the family, I happen to be one of their friends, I have to force everyone to go to this other restaurant that they may not like as much. So a couple things can happen here, but my rule number 3 is if the gluten-free person in your life says, you know what, I can just go, I can enjoy myself, get a drink, and then I can eat something after on, either at home or go pick something up from somewhere else, they mean it. So rule number 3 is when they say they're okay with not eating somewhere or not to worry about them for that evening, they actually mean it. Because I've had instances where someone's celebrating and it takes forever to come up with somewhere to eat because everyone's so worried about me and where I can eat. Where I would be so much happier if that person can go and enjoy their birthday, we can have a great night, I can get a drink, enjoy myself, and then I can go grab something afterwards. And this again will keep the person out of the awkward situation where you're trying to present them with options saying, okay, you know, it's my birthday, so I'd like to eat here, here, here. Can you eat at any of those places? And if they say, no, but I'm okay to go anyways, just believe them and just don't feel bad about it. If that person is sitting at your table and literally doesn't eat and only has a drink the entire night, it's okay. It is okay. And yes, sometimes it does kind of suck to have to watch everyone eat food, especially if it's food that I really enjoy. But that's just my life, and I'm just used to that. So this is something I hope other people would agree with. But for me personally, I just wish people would understand that when I say it's okay, we can eat wherever you would like to for the celebration, that I actually mean that. I'm not trying to throw a pity party for myself. I don't want people to feel bad for me. It's just my life, and I'd much rather not get sick than have to eat somewhere just so the people around me don't feel uncomfortable because I'm not eating. That leads directly into rule number 4, which personally for me is the most important rule. So this is rule number 4. Do not make the gluten-free person in your life have to choose between getting sick or having to be rude to you. Now this does apply to restaurants like I was talking about as well. If you are suggesting a lot of restaurants and they keep having to say, I can't eat at that one actually because of this, or I actually did eat there one time and it made me sick. They have to keep coming up for reasons why they can't eat there, and you're continuing trying to suggest places. They're eventually probably just going to give in and say, yeah, we'll just go there, and they're going to think in their head, it's okay, I'll probably get sick, but I'll get over it, because they don't want to be rude and say, actually, I can't eat there. I can only eat at this place, or this place. So it does apply to restaurants as well. This is really just the all-encompassing rule if you have someone in your life that has to eat gluten-free. This is the hardest thing, having to choose between feeling like you're going to offend someone or feeling like you're being rude, or having to just get sick and just eat the cupcake that someone offers you. So this really applies to those dear people in our life who want to make us gluten-free food. And I'm not saying don't ever cook gluten-free food for people, but if you do, just be very wary. And this is not because you can't cook or you don't know what gluten is or because we don't trust you. This is just because it's a lot harder to be sensitive to things like this when you don't have to live it every day like we do. So when I first got diagnosed, you go through this learning curve where you realize I have to think about every single thing I put in my mouth. And it's hard when you don't have to think about that every day and you're not sensitive to gluten that's in everything, because gluten can be hidden in a lot of things. You might think you made an entirely gluten-free meal, and then if you throw some seasoning salt on top of it, that could have gluten in it. And so it's just so hard to know. So if you want to make gluten-free food for people, I would say invite them over, have them make it with you. This will ensure that the gluten-free person will feel more comfortable about what they're putting in their mouth. They can see all the ingredients that are going into the food, and also they can kind of be there to monitor you just to make sure. And again, this is not because we don't trust you, it's just really hard to know every single thing when you don't have to live this way on a daily basis. We don't expect you to know that gluten can be hidden in seasonings or certain sauces because you don't have to live this way. We do. So we're very happy to help. We're very happy to even bring our own cookware or bakeware, because that's another thing that can be an issue. Personally, my kitchen is 100% gluten-free. In my toaster, in my oven, I have never put gluten in any of those appliances. And if you do have a kitchen where you do cook gluten, it's really hard not to have any cross-contamination happen. So especially with appliances, do not go near a toaster, even waffle irons, things like that that don't go through a dishwasher. Very likely cross-contamination can occur. So again, we know you're just trying to be kind and do this nice gesture, but often it can result in cross-contamination. So get creative. Have that person bring their own bakeware. If you want to make gluten-free cupcakes, have them come cook them with you and use their own bakeware that is gluten-free, just to ensure that person feels safe and you don't have to put them in the awkward position, because we don't want to have to say no and not take the food from you, but it's really hard when we know more often than not that it could make us sick. And then we get to rule number 5. If something looks different about anything, just pretend that my mic didn't go out when I was trying to do rule number 5 the other day. So here we are at rule number 5. This is a very simple rule, but I think important. Rule number 5 is don't assume, just ask. If you have questions for this gluten-free person in your life, just ask questions about what they can eat, where they can eat. I would always say just be open, ask questions. We would much rather answer questions, have a discussion about it, than have to end up in an awkward situation because someone assumed. Just don't ever assume anything. You know, when I first got diagnosed, someone made me cookies with oats because they knew that oats were gluten-free. But oats really aren't gluten-free, so that's a hard one. They have to be labeled gluten-free, which is pretty expensive to buy oats that are gluten-free. Some people that have to eat gluten-free can't even eat grains at all, so they can't even eat oats. So when you want to do something nice for someone, you want to take someone out to eat, you want to make someone food, just ask them, initiate the conversation. And the more that you ask these questions, the more you get to know them about the way that they live, this lifestyle they have to live. I think it will really help, because the hardest thing is just having people that understand, not only understand what we're going through, but just understand where we can eat, what we can eat, that just understand us. So I would encourage you to be that person in this person's life that understands, because that will help so much. These are just 5 kind of silly rules. There really could be so much more, and there is a lot more. So continue to talk to this person in your life, and of course, let me know if you have any other questions. You who might be watching this who isn't gluten-free, what kind of things would you be interested in learning about celiac disease, about living gluten-free? And if you would like, please subscribe so you can keep up with my videos and you can continue to learn more to support this person in your life. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching Gluten Free Groupie.